I was reviewing pavement core reports when my phone buzzed across my desk, skittering toward my keyboard like it was trying to escape. The name on the screen made my stomach tighten instantly. Harper. My 17-year-old sister never called me during work hours unless something was wrong, or unless she wanted something. And with my family, wanting something was usually the same as expecting it. I answered anyway. Clara, I need $11,000. No greeting. No hesitation. Just that, clean, sharp, delivered the way someone orders a sandwich they've eaten 100 times. I blinked at the screen in front of me, the data going blurry. I'm sorry, I said slowly. You need what? He sighed like I was already being difficult. 11,000. It's not even all for me. It's senior trip, prom, grad week. Everything. I pushed my chair back from my desk, staring at the skyline outside my downtown Denver office. People were biking past, grabbing iced coffees, living their lives blissfully unaware that my sister had just lobbed a financial grenade into mine. Harper, I said carefully, your senior trip is to Florida. I saw the flyer. It's like $1,800. That's for the basic package, she snapped. Everyone is getting upgrades. Balcony rooms. The excursions. And prom is like a whole separate budget. Budget. I repeated. You have a budget? For the vibe, she said as if that clarified anything. I want this to be special. I want to look like I belong there. Not like someone whose sister left home and forgot about her roots. But there was the guilt hook. Harper, I said, keeping my voice as level as I could, I love you. But I'm not sending you $11,000. Silence. Then, you're kidding. Her voice went ice cold. You literally make real money. You live in Denver. You go to concerts. You have the life I wish I could have. And you're saying no over something as small as this. Small. I choked. Harper, that's a used car. Oh my God, she groaned. Here comes the speech. When I was your age. I worked, I cut in. I paid for my senior year myself. You can do the same. I can't, she shot back. Mom and Dad can't afford anything right now and you know it. You're the only one who can help. The least you could do is make sure I don't look like a joke compared to everyone else. The least I could do, I repeated quietly. Wow. You're being selfish, she said. It's honestly unbelievable. I looked at my reflection in the window. Tired eyes, hair pulled back, blazer still on even though it was almost 5. I was Clara Wynn, 29, civil project engineer. I oversaw highway maintenance budgets larger than this phone call. Yet my sister talked to me like I was withholding food from her. I'm hanging up now, I said. We can revisit this when you're calm. If you don't help, she snapped, Mom is going to lose it. Then she hung up. I stared at my phone. My ears were ringing. Somewhere down the hall someone laughed, bright, carefree, normal. I tried to breathe through the tightness in my chest. My family had always treated my income like a communal resource. It started small, gas money requests, emergency utility bills. A few hundred here, a few hundred there. But as I got promoted, their expectations grew. They never asked if I could help. They asked how much. And now, apparently, 11,000 for a high schooler's social calendar was a reasonable starting point. My phone buzzed again. I already knew exactly how this conversation would go, down to the tone of her voice and the guilt she'd thread through every sentence. I should have let it go to voicemail. But I answered. Clara, she said without even a hello, what is this I'm hearing about you refusing to help your sister? I closed my eyes. Hi, Mom. I'm fine, thank you for. Don't be smart with me, she snapped. Harper is devastated. She says you told her no. She asked for $11,000, I said. For school events. That's not a reasonable request. You mean it's not a priority for you, she said. There's a difference. I felt my jaw clench. Here we go. Your sister only gets one senior year, Mom continued. And she wants to feel proud, not embarrassed. You know how tight things are for us. You're the one who made it out. You're the one with opportunities. Family helps family. I have been helping, I said. For years. Well then what's one more thing, she said. You can afford it. There was again. The family motto. You can afford it. Mom, I said quietly, I'm not sending her the money. Silence. Not the stunned kind, no, this was sharper, colder. Then, I'm disappointed in you. That sentence hit harder than I wanted it to. I haven't asked you for anything, I said. I've only asked for boundaries. Boundaries, she scoffed. Is that what they teach you in Denver? To abandon your family when they need you? They don't need me, I said. They want my wallet. Her voice rose. If you're really going to turn your back on your sister over money, then maybe you should rethink what kind of daughter you want to be. And just like Harper, she hung up before I could respond. I sat frozen, phone still in my hand, pulse thudding in my throat. Outside, traffic crawled along Spear Boulevard, oblivious to the unraveling happening in my life. This wasn't just about a trip or a dress. This was about years of being treated like financial backup, of being expected to say yes, of being guilt-tripped when I didn't. And for the first time, something inside me whispered, "You don't have to keep doing this." I didn't know it yet, but that whisper was the beginning of everything that came next. The unraveling, the confrontation, the freedom. And the night I would finally choose myself. I didn't sleep well that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard Harper's voice dripping with outrage, my mother's tone loaded with disappointment. You can afford it. Family helps family. The least you could do. By morning I felt wrung out. Still, I made my coffee, pulled on my boots, and drove to the project site outside Golden, pretending my brain wasn't replaying yesterday like a broken record. The mountains were this hazy blue silhouette against the sunrise, but I barely noticed. My thoughts kept drifting backward, farther than senior trips and prom dresses, back to when all this really started. It didn't happen overnight. It never does. I grew up in a small town outside Wichita, Kansas, Belford. A place with 2 stoplights, 1 grocery store, and a diner everyone pretended to hate but secretly loved. My parents, June and Marshall Wynn, were the kind of people who took pride in getting by. Not thriving. Not planning ahead. Just surviving barely. We weren't destitute, but the edge was always there. The hope the paycheck clears before the electric bill does kind of life. And as the oldest kid by 12 years, I became the buffer. The helper. The responsible one. When I got my first job at 16, a cashier at Red Apple Mart, I was proud. It felt like independence. My own money, my own hours. But the glow didn't last. "Sweetie," Mom had said one night, wringing her hands, "we're a little short on groceries this week. Could you help out?" It was $20. $20 turned into 40. 40 into 80. When Dad's truck needed a repair, I chipped in. When Harper needed new shoes, I paid for them. The requests weren't demands, not yet. They were framed as favors. "Just this once, we'll pay you back. We're so proud of how mature you are." They didn't pay me back, but I didn't expect them to. I felt needed, useful, responsible. And that feeling, that twisted sense of purpose, was addictive. By the time I was 19 and commuting to community college, the pattern was cemented. My parents struggled, I patched the holes. Tuition? My problem. Gas? My problem. If Harper wanted something the family couldn't afford? Also my problem. When I landed my first real job, an entry-level survey technician position in Colorado, they treated it like a family victory. Mom threw a congratulations dinner and invited half the extended family. But somewhere between the burgers and the sheet cake, Dad pulled me aside and said, "You'll help us out now, right? Once you're settled? Just until we get on our feet." They were never on their feet. When I got my first paycheck, I sent $200 home. Felt generous. They responded like it was expected. "That'll help us catch up," Mom said. "We'll need a little more next month," Dad added. And every time I hesitated, even for a moment, Harper, sweet, wide-eyed 12-year-old Harper back then, would say something like, "You're so lucky you have a good job now." Lucky. Not hardworking. Not determined. Just lucky. And the implication hung in the air. Lucky people owe their family. By the time I moved to Denver at 24, I was paying for more than anyone outside the Wynn household knew. Utility bills when storms knocked out overtime hours. School fees. Unexpected expenses. Birthdays. Broken appliances. Emergencies that seemed to happen like clockwork. They weren't bad people. Just irresponsible ones. Ones who learned early on that I would catch them every time they fell. And at that point I genuinely believed that was what love looked like. But the real turning point, though I didn't realize it then, came when Dad suggested we open a family safety account. It'll keep us all secure, he said. We'll each put in money when we can. They never did. Not once. But I did because back then I thought it made me a good daughter. A good sister. A good person. Even when the deposits grew larger. Even when I started earning more and they began expecting more. Even when I skipped vacations because the account needed padding. Even when I put off dental work because Harper wanted a new extracurricular program. Even when I cried in my car after work because I felt trapped, financially, emotionally, completely. I kept giving. Because saying no felt like betrayal. As I walked the construction site that morning, clipboard in hand, wind tugging at my jacket, I felt that old familiar guilt trying to creep back in. $11,000. 10 years ago that sum could have changed my entire life. Now they tossed it at me like a casual suggestion. Morning, Clara, one of the contractors called out. I forced a smile. Hey, Jorge. He paused, squinting at me. You look stressed. I laughed weakly. Family stuff. Ah. He nodded knowingly. The only thing harder than pouring concrete in March. I smiled, but my chest felt heavy. Because the truth I had avoided admitting for years, was crystallizing in harsh, undeniable clarity. I wasn't their daughter. Not really. I was their plan B, their safety net, their problem solver, their built-in bailout fund. Somewhere along the way I'd stopped being Claire and started being the one with money. And until yesterday, I hadn't realized how deeply that role had swallowed me. But Harper's demand, my mother's anger, that sentence echoing in my head. You can afford it. It woke something up in me. Something tired. Something fed up. Something ready to snap. I didn't know it then, but the next few days would shatter everything. My role. My boundaries. My relationship with them. And the joint account that had quietly drained me for years. This was the beginning of the end. And the beginning of me. My phone didn't stop buzzing all morning. 3 missed calls from Mom. 2 from Dad. 5 texts from Harper, each one more dramatic than the last. I ignored all of them. I wasn't ready to be dragged into another emotional tornado while trying to prevent a bridge expansion project from falling behind schedule. But at lunch, sitting alone in my car with a container of leftover pasta, I made the mistake of checking my voicemail. Mom's voice filled the car instantly, sharp, wounded, and dripping with the kind of disappointment that used to flatten me when I was a kid. Clara, I don't understand what's gotten into you. Harper is heartbroken and you're acting like a stranger. You should want to help your family. Call me back. Delete. Next message. Dad this time. His tone was clipped, controlled. The way it always got when he felt entitled to something. Clara, your mother is upset and your sister is devastated. I don't know why you're suddenly being so difficult, but this needs to be resolved today. You know we count on you. Count on me. Not care about me. Not appreciate me. Just count on me. Delete. Next message. Harper, already crying before she even spoke. Clara, everyone's booking their stuff this week. Do you want me to be the only one stuck at home? Do you want people laughing at me? I don't ask for a lot. I just want to feel normal. Why can't you ever just support me? Support her. By spending nearly half my annual savings. Delete. I let my forehead fall against the steering wheel. This wasn't new. This wasn't surprising. This was the Wynn family playbook. Step 1. Ask for something unreasonable. Step 2. Act offended when I hesitate. Step 3. Call me selfish. Step 4. Threaten consequences. Step 5. Wear me down until I cave. It had worked for years. But this time something in me felt different. Not stronger, at least not yet. Just less willing to bleed. Around 3 p.m., Dad finally managed to catch me at a moment when I wasn't near coworkers. I stepped outside the office building to take the call, standing in the cold Denver sunlight. Dad, I'm at work. We're talking about this, he said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Your mother is in tears. Your sister feels abandoned. Because I won't pay for a luxury senior package? I asked, keeping my voice calm even as my pulse spiked. Dad, listen to yourself. You're being dramatic, he snapped. Nobody asked for a luxury anything. She just wants what everyone else has. She wants $11,000, Dad. That's not normal. You make good money, he said louder now, like proclaiming my salary was a trump card. You live in a big city. You travel. You have no kids. You can afford it. I let out a long breath. There it was again. The sentence that had become their anthem. Dad, I said, this isn't about whether I have the money. It's about boundaries. No, he cut in sharply. It's about family. And I'm going to say this plainly. If you refuse to help your sister, you are choosing to distance yourself from this family. And I don't know if we can come back from that. A cold wave rolled down my spine. Are you threatening me? I asked quietly. I'm telling you the truth, he said. Your attitude lately has been unacceptable. Maybe you've been in Denver too long. Maybe you've forgotten what loyalty looks like. I closed my eyes. Loyalty. Not love. Not respect. Loyalty. As in obey us. Give us what we want. Don't question us. Dad, I said, choosing my words carefully, I love you. I love Mom. I love Harper. But I'm not sending that money. His silence was immediate and heavy. Then, well, he said, voice low and cold, I hope that job of yours keeps you warm at night. Because clearly, family doesn't mean anything to you anymore. He hung up. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. Didn't even feel the cold air stinging my cheeks. I'd been threatened by my own father before. Not directly, not quite like this. But enough times to recognize the pattern. If you don't give us what we want, you lose us. It was emotional extortion, just dressed in parental disappointment. But this time, something cracked. Not broken. Not shattered. Cracked. Just enough to let in a sliver of truth. If their love depends on my money, it was never love. When I got home that night, I kept my phone on silent and tossed it onto the couch. I changed into sweats, reheated the leftovers I hadn't eaten at lunch and tried to decompress. It didn't work. At 8:47 p.m., a notification flashed across my TV screen, my phone lighting up with messages in the Wynn family group chat. I groaned. I should have muted that chat years ago. The only reason I hadn't was that tiny leftover piece of me, the kid who wanted her parents' approval, still clinging on. I picked up my phone. Mom, Claire, this is not how we raised you. Mom, your sister needs you. This is not a big ask. Harper, everyone says I should just ask my sister because she has the money. It's humiliating that you said no. Dad, fix this tonight. Harper, I can't believe you're doing this to me. Mom, this family is falling apart and you don't seem to care. Dad, last chance, Claire. I scrolled further. Mom, if you don't want to support your family, maybe you shouldn't come home anymore. My chest tightened. There was the nuclear option. Be what we need you to be, or be alone. For years that sentence would have sent me spiraling. But tonight something was different. The threats felt familiar, but this time they didn't land the same way. Because for the first time I saw the truth clearly. My family didn't see me as Clara. They saw me as stability. A resource. A solution. They loved what I provided. But did they love me? Or had I mistaken obligation for affection my entire adult life? I set the phone down slowly, deliberately. I didn't reply. Not because I was trying to be cruel, but because responding meant stepping onto the same old path, a loop I'd been running for 10 years. Guilt. Threat. Give in. And I was finally, starting to realize I didn't want to run it anymore. The guilt was still there, coiled tightly in my chest. But beneath it, a quieter feeling was growing. Not anger. Not rebellion. Just clarity. I wasn't losing my family. I had never actually had them the way I thought I did. And that realization, painful as it was, marked the beginning of something I had never allowed myself to imagine. A life that belonged to me. Tomorrow, everything would erupt in ways I wasn't prepared for. But that night, sitting alone on my couch, I took the first small breath of something that felt suspiciously like freedom. The next morning began with a number that made my stomach drop. 16 missed calls. 34 new texts. And one notification from my bank. That last one was the beginning of the end. I hadn't checked the family safety account in months. There was never a reason to. My parents used it as freely as they breathed and I kept refilling it like a fool who believed in shared responsibility. But after everything that happened yesterday, a thought struck me as I stood in my kitchen pouring coffee. How much have I actually put in? My thumb hesitated over the banking app icon, but curiosity won. When the balance loaded, I felt a physical jolt run through me. $9,602.14. All mine. Every cent. Deposits from me weekly or monthly for years. Never once matched by anyone else. Not even a token $20. My coffee suddenly tasted bitter. Right then my phone buzzed with a new text. Dad, we need access to the account today. Mortgage is due. Mortgage. Of course. Of course my savings weren't for emergencies. They were for their emergencies. Their mismanagement. Their indulgences. A second text arrived instantly. Mom, you have to transfer more. There isn't enough for the payment. Don't make this harder than it needs to be. Harder. Harder for me, who was apparently expected to cover their house payments while living in a one-bedroom apartment. And then Harper chimed in. Harper, if you're not going to help with senior year, the least you can do is keep the account funded. We all rely on it. My breath stopped. We all rely on it. As if they had ever contributed. As if it belonged to them. As if my labor, my hours, my sacrifices were community property. Something hot and sharp snapped inside me. I spent the first few hours at work pretending to focus on erosion control estimates, but all I could see were numbers. Deposits highlighted in green, never a single contribution from anyone but me. It wasn't a family account. It was a siphon. And I'd let it run for half a decade. When my coworker Tamsin dropped a folder on my desk, she paused. You okay? You look like you're doing calculus in your soul. I forced a smile. Just reevaluating some things. Good, she said. Your face says whatever you're reevaluating probably deserves it. She walked off. And with her words still lingering in the air, I opened the banking app again. My finger hovered over the transfer button. A tremor of guilt shot through me, years of conditioning whispering. Be a good daughter. Don't make waves. They need you. But beneath that voice was another one, far smaller, far gentler. What about what you need? I clicked. I entered the full balance. Every last cent. Transfer to personal savings. My hand shook. My breath caught. One more tap. Confirm. The screen flashed. Transaction complete. It was done. My pulse hammered in my ears, a rush of adrenaline hitting me so hard I had to lean back in my chair. My fingers tingled. My chest felt light, too light. Before I could second-guess myself, I exited the transfer window and tapped. Close account. Two-step verification. Some sure. Yes, I understand the action is permanent. Done. Just like that. 5 years of feeding a bottomless pit. Gone. Closed. Over. My phone lit up instantly like a fire alarm. Dad, what did you do? Mom, Clara, call me right now. Dad, are you out of your mind? Harper. WF Clara. They must have gotten the automated notifications. I watched the screen flood with messages, one after another, until the texts blurred into a wall of white. The guilt I expected to feel didn't come. Instead, there was an eerie electric stillness inside me. Like the moment after a storm breaks. That night, Mom's call came in at 9:12 p.m. I let it ring, but after the second attempt I picked up. Clara, she started, breath sharp. Your father just checked the account. What did you do? I took my money back, I said quietly. That wasn't your decision to make. Yes, I said. It was. That account was for all of us, she snapped. It was for me, I corrected, because I was the only one putting anything into it. She went silent, stunned maybe that I wasn't apologizing. You closed the account, she said finally. Without asking. Without warning. Do you understand how irresponsible that is? I understand that I've paid your bills, covered emergencies, and funded Harper's activities for years, I said. And none of you ever acknowledged it. We appreciated it, she said stiffly. No, I replied. You expected it. The line crackled. She inhaled sharply. This family has relied on that account for stability. And what about my stability? I asked. When was the last time any of you asked whether I was okay? Mom didn't answer. Because she couldn't. Clara, she said finally, voice trembling, you can't just cut us out like this. I'm not cutting you out, I said. I'm cutting out the version of me you all depended on. She exhaled, angry, defeated, wounded all at once. This is a mistake, she whispered. And you'll regret it. I didn't respond. I just hung up. My hands were shaking. My heart felt too big for my chest. But underneath the fear and adrenaline was something I hadn't felt in years. Relief. Quiet, clean, powerful relief. Because for the first time the money I earned, my money, belonged to me. And something told me my family was only beginning to realize what that meant. I woke the next morning to the sound of my phone vibrating so violently it nearly slid off the nightstand. For a moment I didn't move. I lay there staring at the ceiling, wrapped in the quiet of my Denver apartment. The sunlight beginning to creep through the blinds, my comforter warm around me, the air still smelling faintly of the lavender spray I used the night before. For the first time in years I'd actually slept well. But the buzzing wouldn't stop. I finally reached for the phone. 42 missed calls. 68 new texts. The Wynn family meltdown had officially reached critical mass. I sat up slowly, bracing myself, and opened the messages. Dad, you've embarrassed us. Dad, we needed that money to keep the house running. Dad, I don't know who you think you are. Mom, Clara, we cannot pay the mortgage without that account. Mom, how could you do this to your own family? Harper, everyone knows now. I had to tell them I can't afford senior trip. I look pathetic. The more I scrolled, the more the messages blurred together. Shame, anger, panic, disappointment, manipulation, all wrapped in one long thread of desperation. But what struck me wasn't their anger. It was the complete absence of one thing. Not a single message asked if I was okay. Not one. No, why did you close the account? No, what's going on? No, are you overwhelmed? No, do you need support? Just demands and accusations. They didn't want clarity. They wanted compliance. I placed the phone face down on the table like it was radioactive. At work, I tried to focus on a meeting, but the worry and noise in my head kept pulling me away. My hands shook slightly as I clicked through slides about asphalt density and winter freeze patterns. I could tell my team sensed something was off. Afterward, as everyone filtered out, my colleague and closest friend at the office, Janelle, lingered behind. You're miles away today, she said softly. Everything okay? I hesitated. I'd never unloaded my personal life at work before. But the pressure sitting on my lungs felt too heavy. It's my family, I finally said. I cut off a joint account. One I shouldn't have been funding alone. Her eyebrows shot up. How long have you been supporting them? 5 years, I said. Maybe longer if I'm being honest with myself. Janelle let out a low whistle. And they never contributed? Not a cent. And they're mad at you? I laughed a humorless little laugh. Very. She didn't tell me I should forgive them. She didn't say, family is family. She didn't encourage me to smooth things over. She just asked, do you feel safer now that the account is closed? The question hit me like a blow. Because the answer was immediate. Yes, I said. I feel free. Janelle nodded. Then you made the right choice. And anyone who truly loves you would respect that. I swallowed hard. Her words were simple. But they cracked something inside me open. By the time I got home that evening, I'd decided I wasn't going to respond to my family. Not yet. Not while they were in attack mode. Not while I felt this raw and vulnerable. I heated up a frozen pizza, curled up on the couch and tried to lose myself in a documentary. But my phone buzzed every 5 minutes until I finally turned it off and tossed it across the room. I didn't want to hear another accusation. I didn't want to read another desperate plea. I just needed, for the world to stop tugging at me for once. But around 9 p.m. there was a loud, unexpected knock at my door. My heart dropped. Nobody knocks on my door unannounced. Not in my building. Not at this hour. I stood up slowly, pulse thudding in my ears. A second knock. Harder. I crossed the living room on quiet feet and looked through the peephole. My mother. My breath caught. She stood in the hallway wearing a faded green cardigan and jeans, her hair pulled back in a way that made her look older than I remembered. Her face was tight, her eyes red, whether from crying or fury I didn't know. I didn't open the door. I cracked it just an inch, the chain still on. Mom, I said cautiously. What are you doing here? I drove 8 hours, she said, voice trembling. We're talking about this. My chest constricted. Mom, Dow isn't. Let me in, Clara. I hesitated. Every instinct screamed to keep that door shut. But she was my mother. And that word still had weight even after everything. I closed the door long enough to undo the chain, then opened it just wide enough for her to enter. She stepped inside, looking around like she expected to find me living in luxury. Her eyes landed on the thrift store bookshelf, the second-hand couch, the fake plant in the corner. This is where all your money goes? She asked, frowning. It wasn't an insult, but it hit like one. Mom, I said exasperated, why are you here? She inhaled sharply. Because your father is furious. Because Harper won't stop crying. Because I don't know what to do anymore. You closed the account without warning. You blindsided us. I reclaimed my money, I said. Money I earned. Money I saved. Money none of you helped put in. Her jaw tightened. We needed that account. I needed boundaries, I replied. We're your family, she insisted. We're supposed to rely on each other. No, I said quietly. You're supposed to care about each other. That's different. She shook her head frustrated. We did care. We do. Do you? I said. Or did you care about what I could give you? Her eyes flashed with hurt. That's not fair. Neither is expecting me to fix every financial crisis you get yourselves into, I shot back. She sank onto the arm of the couch, rubbing her forehead. For a moment she looked small. Human. Tired. Things have been hard, she said softly. Your father's hours got cut. The mortgage, we're behind again. And Harper, she compares herself to girls whose families have more. She just wants to feel special. I understand that, I said. But it isn't my job to fund it. She looked up at me slowly. Her eyes were glossy, not angry, not manipulative. Sad. When did you stop needing us? She whispered. The question hit me like a punch. Because it wasn't said with venom. It was said with genuine confusion. I didn't stop needing you, I said. You stopped being there for me. You were too busy needing what I could provide. She looked away. Her silence was the closest thing to acknowledgement I'd gotten in years. After a long moment she stood up. I don't agree with your decision, she said. But I hear you. I do. And she walked to the door. I followed, unsure of what to say. Before stepping out, she turned back once more. I just hope this wasn't a mistake you can't undo. I didn't respond. She left. And when the door clicked shut, the apartment fell silent. I stood there for a long time. Taken. Unsteady. But strangely, relieved. Because for the first time my mother had seen the truth. Maybe she didn't like it. Maybe she didn't accept it. But she had seen it. And the night they all realized I wasn't their ATM anymore was the night I finally began becoming someone else. Someone who belonged to herself. For the first time in my adult life, the silence was mine. No buzzing phone. No frantic texts. No demands disguised as family emergencies. Just quiet. The morning after my mother's unexpected visit, I woke up before my alarm. Not from anxiety, not from dread, just naturally. My bedroom window glowed with soft Colorado sunlight, and for once, my first thought wasn't what does my family need from me today? It was, what do I want today to look like? I lay there for a moment, letting the unfamiliar peace settle into my bones. It felt fragile. Almost suspicious. But real. At work I found myself moving differently. Not lighter exactly, but untethered. Unhooked from something that had been weighing me down for years. During the morning briefing, my boss, Brent, a dry-humored Colorado native who somehow made hydrology forecasts sound interesting, glanced at me mid-sentence. Clara, he said, brows raised slightly. You look well-rested. I blinked. Do I? You do, he said, nudging his glasses up his nose. It's freaking me out. You're throwing off the whole engineer aesthetic. We're supposed to look perpetually stressed. A few people chuckled. I did too. And for the first time it wasn't forced. Later, during lunch, I found myself sitting with my coworkers longer than usual. I wasn't checking my phone. I wasn't mentally preparing to field the next family disaster. I was just present. Tamsin nudged me with her elbow. So are we talking about why you suddenly seem like you're breathing actual oxygen and not emotional smog? I made a face. Do I really seem that different? Yes, she said without hesitation. It's like someone took a backpack full of bricks off your shoulders. I hesitated, then nodded. I cut off funding to my family. Closed the account. Set boundaries. Ah, she said, her eyes softening. You finally did it. You make it sound like I've been planning a jailbreak, I said. Haven't you? She replied. Every time you mention your family, you look like you're describing a hostage situation. The table laughed. I did too. But beneath the humor, something inside me felt seen in a way I'd rarely experienced. She wasn't judging me. She wasn't guilting me. She wasn't calling me selfish. She was just acknowledging a truth I'd been scared to name. Seriously, she added, good for you. Sometimes family is, well, overrated. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Thank you, I said. And I meant it. Work became a sanctuary over the next few weeks. Not because of the tasks or the deadlines, but because it was the first place in my life where people saw me as something other than a resource. My value wasn't tied to my wallet, or my ability to fix things, or how quickly I could solve someone else's crisis. At work, my contributions were measured in plans, numbers, decisions, things that came from my mind, not my bank account. I realized I liked that more than I'd ever admitted. Outside of work, life started expanding, stretching in directions I'd never let it before. I said yes when Janelle invited me to trivia night. I said yes when my boss suggested I apply for a mentorship program. I even said yes when an acquaintance from another department asked if I wanted to join their hiking group. Previously, I would have said no every time. Not because I didn't want to go, but because I always feared my phone would explode with a crisis the moment I stepped into anything fun. Well, let it explode. I wasn't answering. And I didn't. Not once. A week after my mom's visit, something unexpected happened. I got a voicemail from my father. Just one sentence. Clara, call me back. No anger. No threats. No guilt. But also, no apology. Not yet. Maybe not ever. I didn't call back. I wasn't ready. And for the first time in my life, not being ready was a valid reason. That same week something else shifted. Something I didn't expect. I realized how good it felt to talk to people who cared about me, not what I could provide. My coworker Zoya dropped by my desk one afternoon. You free this weekend? She asked. Yeah, why? Some of us are going to a pottery class. Total beginners. You should come. Old Clara, the Clara who lived with her phone on high alert, would have made an excuse. She would have worried about being called away, or that spending money on herself was indulgent. New Clara paused only to consider whether she genuinely wanted to go. I'd like that, I said. And the smile she gave me made my chest warm. Not because it was romantic. Not because it was special. But because it was easy. Something in my life was finally easy. But the biggest change, the one I didn't see coming, walked into my life the following Thursday while I was waiting in line at a food truck outside the office. A familiar voice behind me said, Clara Wynn? Is that seriously you? I turned and almost dropped my wallet. It was Milo Thorne. A guy I knew back in community college. A guy who'd been in my drafting class, who always smelled faintly of cedar, and who once spent an entire semester trying to get me to join the engineering club. We hadn't spoken in nearly a decade. Milo. I laughed. What are you doing in Denver? Just moved here, he said, stepping forward to hug me without hesitation. Working for a structural design firm a few blocks away. I thought that was you, but, damn Clara, you look different. Different how? I asked. Better, he said simply. Lighter. There was again. Lighter. We ended up eating lunch together on a bench overlooking the river. He told me about his move, his job, the dog he'd adopted, and the terrible landlord he'd just escaped. I told him about my work, my life in Denver, and carefully, intentionally, almost nothing about my family. Not because I was hiding anything, but because I finally realized something. My identity didn't have to revolve around how much I endured. I could talk about things I enjoyed, things I wanted, things I chose. And Milo listened, actually listened, with interest that wasn't tinged with expectation. Before we left, he grinned. Let's catch up again sometime. My number hasn't changed, but just in case here. He held out his phone. I took it. Typed in my number. For the first time in a long time, I felt a spark of excitement instead of dread. A tiny, flickering flame of possibility. That night, as I sat in my apartment with a cup of tea and a movie on in the background, I realized something profound. I wasn't lonely. For years, I'd believed that without my family's approval, I'd be alone in the world. Lost. Unsupported. Forgotten. But as I looked around my quiet, safe apartment, my space bought with my money, protected by my boundaries, I realized that loneliness wasn't the threat. Losing myself was. And little by little, moment by moment, I was finding myself again. Not the Claire who always said yes. Not the Claire who patched every hole. Not the Clara who lived in fear of disappointing people. A new Clara. A whole one. And for the first time in years, I wasn't afraid of who she might become. 3 weeks passed. 3 weeks without a single frantic phone call I felt obligated to answer. 3 weeks without transferring money I couldn't comfortably spare. 3 weeks of sleeping through the night without the dread of waking up to a financial emergency that wasn't mine. I was starting to believe my life might actually stay peaceful. But peace in my family was always just the calm before the next storm. It started on a Thursday afternoon. I was in the field, boots sinking into damp soil while I photographed erosion patterns along a riverbank, when my smartwatch buzzed with an email notification from a sender I recognized instantly. Dad Win. I almost deleted it without reading. I wasn't ready for another guilt-loaded monologue or angry accusation. But something, curiosity maybe, made me open it. The message was short. Abrupt. Not his usual style. Subject, need to talk. Clara, the bank is moving forward with foreclosure. We have 45 days to pay the past due amount or vacate. I'm not asking for charity. We just need a loan. Please call me. I stared at the screen as the river murmured beside me. Foreclosure. It wasn't surprising. They'd hinted at financial trouble for months. But seeing it spelled out that plainly made my breath catch. For a moment the old instinct, the one that had driven a decade of self-sacrifice, kicked in. Help them. Fix it. Make it go away. That instinct had shaped most of my adult life. But then the second instinct arrived. The new one, fragile but growing stronger each day. It's not your responsibility. I closed the email. Didn't respond. Didn't let it pull me under. Because helping them this time would mean undoing everything I'd finally built. My boundaries, my peace, my financial safety. And I couldn't do that again. They didn't give up easily. The next message came from my mother. This one was longer, pages long, stuffed with emotion like a suitcase stuffed until the zipper bursts. We're trying our best. Your father is working extra shifts. Harper is devastated. The mortgage company won't give us more time. We might lose the house. If you ever cared about us, please pick up. I sat at my kitchen island reading it, my tea growing cold in my hands. Her words tugged at me, of course they did. I wasn't made of stone. But each sentence was carefully woven to aim straight for my guilt. Not a single line asked about me. Not a single question wondered how I'd been. Not one acknowledgement of the boundaries I set. Just a plea for money. A plea to return to the role I'd finally escaped. I closed the email. This time the guilt didn't crush me. It only brushed my shoulders, light, fleeting, and then fell away. But the message that shook me the most wasn't from my parents. It was from Harper. She called 5 times before I finally answered. I don't know why I picked up. Maybe curiosity, maybe closure, maybe something softer I didn't want to name. Clara. Her voice was small. Not angry. Not entitled. Just scared. We're losing the house, she said. And I don't know what we're going to do. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice steady. I'm sorry to hear that, I said. I really am. But I can't fix this. You can, she whispered. You have the money. I have money for my life, I said. Not for everyone else's. She went quiet. Then shakily, so you're just going to let us become homeless? A familiar wave of guilt swelled, then crashed harmlessly against the new wall inside me. No, I said. Your parents are responsible for their mortgage. Not me. There was a long silence on the line. I could imagine her, sitting cross-legged on her bed, mascara smudged, for the first time in her life facing a fear without me cushioning it. You don't get it, she said finally. This is everything. My room. Our house. You grew up there. So did you, I said. And you're old enough to understand that financial consequences aren't personal attacks. She sniffed. Everyone's saying you abandoned us. Everyone. I asked. Who's everyone? Mom. Dad. Aunt Lila. Grandpa. People. People who never offered me a cent. People who never asked how I was. People who saw me as the girl who made it out, and therefore owed everybody else. Well, I said gently, they're wrong. She didn't respond. Harper, I continued, you're stronger than you think. And sometimes, life forces us to grow up faster than we want to. More silence. Then her voice cracking. I'm scared. My heart twisted. Not because she said it, but because it was the first honest thing she'd said to me in years. I know, I said softly. And I'm sorry you're scared. But facing things is part of growing up. And you won't learn how if I keep rescuing everyone. She started crying. Quiet, raw, real. I let her cry. But when she finally whispered, "Can you please help? Please? Just this once." I took a long, slow breath. "I can't," I said. Not angrily. Not coldly. Just truthfully. And for the first time in my life, I didn't back down. She hung up without saying goodbye. 2 weeks later, I got a call from Joanna, my aunt, the only family member who'd supported my boundaries from the start. "They lost the house," she said. "They're moving into a small apartment on the outskirts of town." I closed my eyes. Not out of guilt. Out of finality. "This was always going to happen," Joanna added gently. "They've been living on money they didn't have for years. You just aren't there to buffer it anymore." "Do you think they blame me?" I asked. "Oh, honey," she said. "They blame anyone but themselves. That's their pattern." I exhaled slowly. "Let them," she continued. "Blame won't fix their budget. And you're not obligated to drown with them." Her voice softened. "You finally saved yourself. That's not a crime." I felt something inside me settle into place, like a puzzle piece finally clicking in after years of being forced into the wrong spot. "They'll survive," she said. "People do." And I realized she was right. This wasn't the apocalypse for them. This was a reckoning. One they might learn from. One I'd learned from long before they did. That night, I sat on my balcony with a blanket over my legs, watching the Denver skyline shimmer in the distance. For years, I'd imagined that if my family ever hit financial disaster and I didn't step in, I would feel like a monster. But I didn't. I felt adult. My parents' crisis wasn't my failure. Harper's fear wasn't my burden. Their home wasn't my responsibility. My life was finally my own. And their world could fall apart without taking me with it. It wasn't coldness. It was freedom. And I wasn't going back. 6 months. It had been 6 months since the night I closed the joint account and slept. Truly slept, for the first time in years. 6 months since the meltdown, the threats, the silence, and the fallout. And in those 6 months, my life had quietly, steadily transformed. Not dramatically. Not explosively. Just beautifully. It happened in small ways first. I stopped checking my phone every few minutes. Stopped flinching whenever it buzzed. Stopped feeling that constant buzzing anxiety that someone needed something from me. My money stayed mine. My weekends belonged to me. My peace wasn't something I had to negotiate for. And as the noise from my family faded, I started hearing my own thoughts again, maybe for the first time in a decade. Work flourished in a way I hadn't expected. Without the mental clutter, the guilt, the panic, the exhaustion, I was sharper. More focused. More creative. My boss noticed. One afternoon, Patricia stopped me in the hallway, her tablet tucked under her arm. "Clara," she said, "I've been reviewing your last few project reports. Stellar work. You're ready for more responsibility." My chest tightened. "Are you offering?" "A promotion," she said with a small smile. "Senior project engineer. And a raise. A real raise. One that reflected my actual worth. Not the version of myself who handed out her income like it was community property." I shook her hand, stunned and grateful. But later, sitting alone at my desk, I realized something profound. I had earned this. All of it. And for once, no one was waiting at the other end of the line to claim a piece of it. It was mine. My social life blossomed too, almost by accident. With boundaries in place, I created space for people who respected them. My coworkers became real friends. Trivia nights, pottery classes, small hikes, shared coffee runs. It was like stepping into a world I hadn't realized I'd been missing. I said yes to things because I wanted to, not because I was running from something else. And then there was Milo. He and I fell into an easy rhythm. Lunch breaks, long conversations, evenings spent wandering downtown Denver with cups of late-night coffee. He was steady, thoughtful, attuned in ways that felt foreign to me. One night, sitting on a park bench under fairy lights, he looked over and said quietly, "You know, you're different now." "Different how?" I asked. "You seem like you're living your own life," he said. "Not someone else's version of it." I didn't answer, not because I disagreed but because hearing it aloud made my throat tighten. Instead, I leaned my shoulder gently against his. He didn't ask for anything. He didn't expect anything. He just sat there with me while the city glowed around us. And for the first time, I wasn't bracing for the moment someone would try to take more than I could give. But the final chapter in this story, the part that stitched everything closed, arrived unexpectedly one quiet Sunday morning. I was curled up on the couch with a blanket across my lap, sipping coffee and reading about trail recommendations for a weekend trip, when an email notification appeared. From Mom Win. Subject: I'm sorry. My whole body froze. I opened it. Claire, I don't expect you to reply and I don't expect forgiveness. But I need to say this. I'm sorry. I sat up straighter. My mother never apologized. Not sincerely anyway. Not without a request attached. But this email was different. It continued. We treated you like a safety net instead of a daughter. We didn't see how much we asked of you. We didn't see how much it cost you. You were right to walk away. My throat tightened. He went on. Your father and I are adjusting. The apartment is small, but we're managing. We've had to learn how to budget, how to say no, how to stand on our own. Harper got a job at the cafe down the street. He's learning. You didn't abandon us, Clara. You just stopped carrying us, and we should have been carrying ourselves a long time ago. I pressed my hand to my chest. It felt too full. The last lines were the kind I never thought I'd see in writing. I'm proud of you. I hope you're happy. You deserve to be. Then, love, Mom. I read it 3 times. By the end, my vision blurred. Not from sadness. Not from guilt. From relief. True, quiet, unburdened relief. I didn't respond that day. Or the next. Not out of anger. Not out of punishment. I just wanted to sit with the feeling. This small, tender closure that didn't demand anything from me. And in the following weeks, our communication shifted. Slowly, cautiously. Small, polite texts from her. Neutral conversations. No requests. No expectations. For the first time in my adult life, I chose how much of myself I wanted to give to my family. And they accepted it. That was worth more than any apology. Months later, standing on a cliffside trail in Italy, the trip I'd always dreamed of taking but never let myself plan, I looked out over the Mediterranean, the sun painting the water gold, the wind warm on my face. I thought about the girl I used to be. The one who thought love was earned through sacrifice. The one who believed boundaries were selfish. The one who spent years shrinking herself to fit her family's needs. She had survived so much. But she was gone now, gentled into someone stronger, steadier, whole. Someone who chose herself. Someone who understood that real family doesn't drain you. Real family doesn't threaten you. Real family doesn't love you because of what you give them. Real family loves you, the person, not the provider. I took a deep breath, tasting salt and sunlight. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A message from Milo. Zempics. I want to see Italy through your eyes. Another from Janelle. Proud of you, friend. Enjoy every second. And one from Mom. Hope you're having a beautiful trip, Clara. I smiled. Not because they needed me, but because they saw me. And as the waves crashed against the cliffs far below, I realized. Closing that joint account didn't break my family. It broke the version of myself that didn't know how to say no. And in its place, I built a life that was finally fully mine. A life rooted not in guilt or obligation but in choice. A life where I could breathe. A life where I could grow. A life where choosing myself wasn't selfish. It was freedom.